As FNAF fans, we like to go out of our way to give credit to every part of the series and just shower it with praise, but there's one part that I think we've been overlooking, which is weird because this is a really interesting part of the series I'd love to touch on a little bit. The music, because there's a ton, but I'd like to take a look at some of the most memorable ones and just kind of give my thoughts on the soundtrack of this series. Let's go, and let's start with FNAF 1. But wait, do you hear that? Yes, it's the merch alarms. We've got brand new merch. With 3 new designs coming for you, we've lowered all of our prices. Some by more than 25% of the original price. I've mentioned this before in past videos, but this series, each game kind of gives off its own unique feel, especially in the original 4. The original Five Nights at Freddy's was a bit more of a mysterious, kind of vaguely creepy vibe. It wasn't in-your-face scary like 3 or 4. There's just something uniquely off about these characters and their sunken eyes, and the main menu theme complements this really nicely. It isn't too intense, it's just creepy. And of course, there's the iconic tune that you hear when your power goes out. The main song that we probably think of when we think of this series. It's interesting how such an innocent song like this could be spun in such a disturbing way. I love the way it's done. It just goes to show how in the right mood, anything can be creepy, which is a concept that I'd love to see explored more in other games and media in general. The quiet clicks in the background as the music box winds down, the darkness around the building, it just works really nicely along with the cheery tune. Mood is so important for all types of art, be it movies, physical art, or video games. And this game did that so well. I've made it very clear that I'm not the biggest fan of FNAF 2, but if there's one thing that game does really well, it's hold up to the first game's soundtrack. It gives off the same feel, but it still feels fresh. It even has its own version of the Toledo March, the puppet music box theme. It has the same tinny sound to it, the same creepy vibe given the setting, and the clicks in the background as the music slows and then quickens uneven. It just gives off a really disturbing feel that really matches and goes well with the theme of the second game and also what the first game did. Also, can I just quickly mention the London Bridge theme? Just felt like it was, kind of an honorable mention from the trailer. Ah, so creepy. But all in all, still pretty similar to the first game, and Scott still wasn't exactly... He still didn't have original pieces, and that's why I'm kind of skimming over these first 2. But let's go to FNAF 3. This is where I started to join the fan base, and I still love this soundtrack. For one, let's go to the ambience, which, while also being creepy, just like the past games, also gives off a very technological feel to it, which makes sense since this game is set in the future. So it manages to keep the same creepy vibe, while also giving off a very different feel from the first games, in my opinion. It sounds very similar to the Terminator soundtrack. It also utilizes sound effects very well in this one, but not in the way that the past games did. This one utilizes a lot of very mechanical, high-pitched sound effects. Much like the Winter Soldier theme from Captain America Winter Soldier. I don't know if you know that theme, but that gives off a very similar feel to this, and I definitely recommend checking it out. It's a very good theme, and it gives off very much the same feel as this, as the mechanical sounds in this game do. They're very shrill, they're very random and uncomfortable, and they do a good job to get across the scary theme that this game is going for. Except for the minigames. The minigames actually have their own music this time, and they're very similar to the music box themes from previous games. Very tinny, very fast-paced, and often there's a slight static in the background, which just adds to the creepiness. And in my opinion, these ones are better than the original Toledo March and the puppet music box. But now, let's move over to FNAF 4. This is where Scott just threw all that subtle, mysterious creepiness out the window and just said, you know what, let's give people nightmares. Let's make sure that Chris can't sleep at night. Let's make sure that he always has to keep his light on in the dark. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks for that so much. Yeah, this is a lot scarier. And I'm sure part of that is just because the game itself is scarier, but the music just has a certain terrifying quality to it. I can't play a lot of it because it's copyrighted music, but it's very intense, a lot more than some of the older games. There isn't actually much music in this game, really, but the ambience makes up for it. And the sounds you hear in the background while the animatronics are attacking you, stuff like the dog barking, a car engine going by. Familiar sounds that, in the dark, seem sinister. And what music there is really complements this. Now, I would like to talk about Sister Location, but before we get to that, I'd also like to take a moment to talk about FNAF World. Now, I was going to skip over this one, because it's just a spin-off, 2, because I didn't really think there was any actually unique music in here. But then I stopped to think, and since this game has a lot more different types of music from the originals, I decided to check it out, and I'm actually kind of surprised at the amount of detail that's hidden in here. There's a ton of variety in this game. From the cheery stuff, which, trust me, there's a lot, but even that, in and of itself, has a lot of variety. There's also some more, almost creepy tracks in here, though. There's even some tracks for boss fights. It's got a ton of variety, more so than the other games, even. And so while this game isn't better than the source material, I think the music is. But, okay, Sister Location. This is where Scott started to get some actual original music for his games, from Leon Riskin. You can find a lot of Leon Riskin's music on YouTube, and he mostly does relaxing stuff. So it's kind of odd that he manages to make such tense, disturbing music as well. The first track we hear from the game is actually in the trailer, and somehow it just manages to convey this dread really well. You hear the piano, of course, but there's also the machinery in the background. The clanking, that perfectly matches the music, and the notes are never held for more than a second. A sharp tap more than elegant keys. And so while it's played on a piano, it feels like something much more forceful, like there's anger behind the tune. The past games had mechanical elements to their tracks, because, you know, robots, but this is where I think the series starts to really embrace that. It also gave one of the most iconic songs in the franchise, which plays when you fight Ennard. This song has been used so much ever since, and people continue to use it to this day, along with a lot of the tracks in this game. The song Ballora plays is absolutely chilling. And while there's nothing particularly scary about her voice, what makes it terrifying is the things she says, and how the fact that her voice isn't human. She isn't human.
No more joy, an empty tomb.
So, as you can see, Sister Location had much more detail than previous games, and that's why I kind of glossed over the first few. Pizzeria Simulator also had some really good tracks. It brought back some of those FNAF World style really cheery musics. I think it might have even used some that were used in FNAF World, but it also had some really disturbing tracks as well. The main menu theme is actually a remix of Turtle Crusher, the song from the baby minigame in Sister Location. Also, can we just appreciate what an absolute bop the Midnight Motorist theme is? Minor Corrosion of the Bizette is a mix between the Toreador March and a FNAF World theme. At first I tried to find it in the FNAF World soundtrack because that's where I thought it was, but then when I was going over the Pizzeria Simulator songs I realized that's where it's from, because that's how much it sounds like a FNAF World theme. Leon Riskin composed all these songs again, as he did for all FNAF games since FNAF World, I believe. 4 Bits to the Left, which plays in Fruity Maze, is absolute nightmare fuel, though you wouldn't think it at the first glance. But once you play through the mini-game 3 times, I believe, It slowly starts to get more and more distorted and slow until we ultimately see Springtrap behind the girl's reflection in the image. So, as if the song itself didn't get sad enough, that just is the icing on the cake, although that feels like the wrong expression for this. The final song in this game is Nowhere to Run, and it plays at the very end, when all the animatronics are burning and the whole building is just burning down. It was meant to be the end of the series, and so it feels very triumphant, yet sad at the same time. It's really the only type of music that we've had that has this level of emotion attached to it. And that's why I had to include it, even if I don't really have much to say about it. And there we have it, the 6 main games and all their music, analyzed relatively well, I hope. I'm going to go over the next few games if this video does well in a sequel to this video, but we'll see how this video does first. Let me know what you think about this music in this series, and make sure to show it some love. But in the meantime, thank you guys for watching. Remember, if you like this video, then maybe like it. And if you're interested, subscribe. I'm a YouTuber, so I have to say these things. It's in the contract. But nothing more to say. I'll see you guys next time, and goodbye.